Hello, and thank you for joining me today for a chat. Welcome back to Whispers from the Phylactery. I've been a game runner for 15 years, storyteller, writer, and I would like to just sit, relax, and talk with you today about failure in role playing games. So, there is a moment in almost every group, at every table, where the game goes quiet, grinds to a halt, a die stops rolling, someone exhales, or they curse, which is more likely, and it's a plan that didn't go the way it was supposed to. And these aren't the end of the campaign. They're not a total party wipe. Those are a different thing. This is just something slipped through the player's fingers. Maybe it's that the lock doesn't open in time. Maybe the NPC that they were trying to save doesn't believe them and refuses to accompany them. Maybe the spell they cast works, but not quite in the way that they were hoping for. We, as gamers, tend to call these moments failures. And most of us, at least early on, treat them like problems to be avoided at almost all costs. We build around them, we soften them, we re-roll them away until our characters are perfect. And really, I want to talk about the idea that through these moments, the near misses, the compromises, the unintended the unintended consequences, I can talk English, that these aren't interruptions to the story, rather they're what makes stories more powerful and more meaningful. And at least to me, more interesting. So let's just have a chat about it. Failure shouldn't be defeat or punishment, although there is intrinsically a little bit of that in failure. But they're one of the most powerful narrative tools that we really have when we're telling a story, especially collaboratively. So, sort of part one, why we're taught to avoid failure. Most games train us to associate failure with the loss of progress. In video games, failure often means reloading a save. In board games, it means falling behind. Sometimes you can never recover. In tabletop traditions, particularly early Dungeons and Dragons, it means character death or wasted effort. So it is natural that players and game runners, everyone tries to minimize it. We smooth our way over rough rolls. We quietly adjust the outcomes, looking at UDMs, fudging dice. We treat setbacks like speed bumps on the way to the real story. But I don't really agree with that. Like I said before, failure at the table isn't the absence of success, it's the presence of uncertainty in the game. We roll dice because we want there to be a chance that things don't work. If we're not doing that, we'd play a system where you just say what you do and you do it. Sort of like fate. If you can convince the GM because your character has the abilities, then go for it. You can do the thing. In D&D and Pathfinder and D20 systems and other things like Dread or Dungeon World, where dice play a factor, when everything works as planned, the story becomes predictable, it becomes competent and maybe even impressive, but flat and sort of boring. When things go wrong, the world pushes back against the party. It becomes more alive, and choices matter more. So, really, I'd like to ask you to think about the stories you remember most from your games. They're probably not clean victories. Some might be. I bet most aren't. The stories that people remember, the stories that at least I remember most, are the times when a plan falls apart halfway through, or when someone has to improvise all of a sudden, when success comes at a cost no one expected or anticipated, or sometimes you do anticipate it and you just hope that it doesn't happen. setbacks setbacks make the world work, and they make stories more memorable. The only reason I remember a boss fight is because my character failed to save in the first round, and then I sat there doing nothing for an hour and a half. And that made me mad. That was a failure I remember. So, basically, a failed roll doesn't stop the story. It shouldn't stop the story. You always want to have a way around it, a way to redirect the action. So, if the door doesn't open, the lock isn't done in time, now there's a guard approaching. The negotiation goes poorly, or you fail to convince an NPC, now the party has an enemy that they didn't expect. The key difference here is failures as a wall and failures as a turn around a corner. When we're running a game, a good game to me is that failure doesn't say no. It just says not like that. And that small shift can really, it's a difficult mentality at the beginning, but I think it's a better mentality. Instead of asking, did we succeed? Your party members start asking, what happens now? And I just think that's a better way of looking at things. So, really, success and competency shows what characters are capable of. I think that failure shows us who those characters are. When things go wrong, players stop performing competently and they start making value-based decisions. Do they double down on an encounter or a dynamic? Do they retreat to gather their strength and come back? Do they sacrifice something important to them to fix the mistake in the moment? These are things that you can't script. A paladin choosing whether to break their oath to save someone, a rogue staying behind longer than they should to possibly hold off the enemy, a wizard burning a spell that they were saving for later. None of these choices really matter unless something has already gone wrong with the plan. Setbacks can really strip away the idealized version of the characters and force us to play those characters honestly to their strengths or to their mindset. And part of this, for me, when I make characters, is characters should have a flaw. I don't find it very exciting if every character is great at everything. Characters should have a weakness. At least I try to put weaknesses in my characters, some glaring vulnerability, because if they can do everything, well, I don't like stories about Superman. He's too good at everything. I think that the failures lead to more exciting moments. They can create scars, and scars never really fade. So, yes, you can waltz through the campaign, fantastic. 10 flawless victories, but the one time you fail is going to stick out more. Like that story with the big bad evil guy, and then I sat there for an hour and a half because I failed a fortitude save. Got turned into a block of ice. Back on track. I think it's important for failure to build tension without ending the game. Because I admit that I am a bit of a hard DM. I like grim stories, fatalistic stories where hope is wavering. But it's important to draw a line. I don't want the story to be completely hopeless. Hope should exist. I don't want my games to be success is impossible or meaningless, because then we're torturing ourselves. And success is all the sweeter when you have overcome. And I definitely don't want to talk about total party kills as narrative tools. That's not this video. They do have their place in it, and I'll talk about that in another video. But as far as this is concerned, a failure, you should really try not to have it be a total party kill. I like to balance myself somewhere in the middle. Although I lean closer to the grim, dark setting style. Failure should always complicate the situation, but it shouldn't conclude it. The party fails to stop the ritual, so now they're dealing with the aftermath. Either the demon is summoned, the ritual leader gains power that they didn't have before. The land is wrecked with devastation. Or if they have defeated the villain, but they still escape, they escape wounded, changed, very eager for revenge against the party. Or the town burns, and yes, they managed to save the people of the town, but the town is gone. However, now those people remember who tried to help them, and as they scatter to different settlements, your party now can travel. They will have an automatic in with someone in the city where, yes, those people tried to help us. It wasn't successful in the end, but how could they have succeeded against such odds? The fact that this many of us survived is a miracle by itself. I find that these sort of outcomes preserve player agency. They keep the game moving and alive, and they give players something to respond to and keep building off of. When used well, failure raises the stakes of your game and your world without fully removing hope. That's something I have a little bit of an issue like balancing with. It ideally you want to tell your table and your players the world reacts to you. Your choices matter, but the story, you're not going to automatically get the happy ending. I find that balance is really important because yes, we want to tell a good story. We want the party to succeed, but we don't want to just feed them mooks the entire time and like, oh, the big bad evil guy died in 2 shots. Like, well, unless it's really earned and they pulled off some squeaky, crazy maneuver, okay. Then you defeat the big bad evil guy. Really easy. The DM will be disappointed. I'm disappointed when that happens. But you let it happen because until they start talking up, and then you just toss down a bigger bad guy. So, sort of recapping through everything I've said, the core theme here is failure makes victory matter more. Because victory is only meaningful when it's been threatened, when it might not be guaranteed. A win that was never in doubt fades. You don't remember those stories. A win that's earned after the character's loss, their sacrifice, or their compromise, it lasts longer. If your paladin had to break their oath to save an innocent life, and it was let that innocent perish and capture the bad guy, or the bad guy escapes and you save the innocent, those stories stick around longer in the brain. And when hopefully your players remember how close things came to falling apart, it just makes it taste sweeter. Failure gives contrast to the triumph. So I guess in the end, I want to reiterate that the goal isn't to avoid failure. Failure is important. The goal is to not be afraid of failure, to not be afraid of making the party go another way. The dice exist to complicate our lives, to let the plans warp and bend, and the players need to trust in the GM that setbacks don't ruin the stories. They just build on them. Otherwise, why are we playing a game with dice? We would just play a video game where we could reload and reload and reload, or we would play a game that doesn't have dice mechanics. So that's it. In tabletop games, losing doesn't have to mean losing. If you're still here, thank you. I know that it's been a bit of a ramble. This is the second time recording this video because the first one didn't have audio. Great. But if you liked it, consider hitting the like button, leaving a comment. Let me know about your stories about failure or your stories about your GM and the best way that they turned a situation into an exciting moment through a failure. And if you want to see more, I do these chats once a week on different storytelling elements, and I do monster shorts every week, or every day, sorry, not every week. And I have a development diary going on. You can take a look and possibly subscribe. I'd appreciate it. So thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you have a good one, and until next time.